Okay, the chlamydia. I won't make the usual jokes about being familiar with chlamydia. Used to be that the chlamydia were only 3 species of the genus Chlamydia, but they've been all divided up and sorted out from there. Because it turns out they're not as familiar, not as similar to each other as people thought. These also include not just animal pathogens, but plant pathogens as well. But it's still a fairly small group. All of these things are intracellular parasites. You do see, so if you take a natural environment like a sediment and amplify ribosomal RNA from DNA extract from that, you will find chlamydia. Now that suggests that there might be free living species of this thing, but probably those are intracellular parasites of protists. We know that there's some examples of that, and there are probably a lot more. You have a biphasic life cycle. You guys have seen this before, med, micro, etc. The elementary bodies are what live in the interstitial fluid or the environment. They are phagocytized by a host cell. They live in the vacuole, in the phagosome vacuole. They germinate, if you will, from the elementary body to a reticulocyte, a reticular body. That reticular body is the vegetative normal growth phase of the organism. They multiply as saprophytes of the host. When nutrients begin to get limited, the cells start to develop back into elementary bodies. They know that the ship is sinking. Again, know in some kind of bacterial, physiological way. And then one of two things happens. In some species, with some hosts, that host cell completely gives up the ghost. Lyses, everything lyses open, and the reticular bodies elementary bodies are released into the interstitial fluid. In other symbioses or other situations, you go through a kind of reverse phagocytosis. So there's a membrane fusion, and these things are spit back out into the environment, and the host cell survives. The genomes of these organisms are very highly reduced, and so they only have about 1,000 genes on them, depending on the species. How do they get away with this? Because they don't really have to make anything, right? They don't have to make amino acids. They don't have to make vitamins. These are all things they can get from the hosts. They do have all the genes, of course, for transcription, translation, replication, cell envelope synthesis, etc. Interestingly, they do have the genes for peptidoglycan biosynthesis. And these genes seem to be important for their life cycle. But the organisms don't have a peptidoglycan cell wall. And they are not sensitive to typical peptidoglycan inhibiting antibiotics. They contain glycolytic enzymes. They contain genes for pieces of the TCA cycle. They can make, some of them can make purines and pyrimidines. They have an ATPase that runs antiport systems, but there's no electron transport. They are energy parasites. This has a very specific meaning. They're not just parasites, and they also get their energy from the host. But they have an ATP-ADP antiport. So they recycle ADP with their host. They pump ADP into the host cell and suck ATP in. Again, obligate cellular parasites, primarily animals and amoebas. This sounds kind of weird, but the most amoeboid thing I know of that isn't an amoeba is a macrophage. Right? They walk around, they look just like amoebas. They phagocytize things, they have very specific targets, and they internalize them just like an amoeba does. Chlamydial diseases can be pretty awful. Trachoma is the most common preventable cause of blindness in the world. This is a kid with trachoma. It's most common in children in the third world. And this is really bad. So what happens is the chlamydia infects the inside of your eyelids, causes them to swell. That's what this is, and that causes scarring. And you know what a scar does, right? It contracts and pulls in. And when it does that, it turns your eyelids in. And the result is every time they blink, their eyelashes scratch the cornea. And typically these kids, I mean, one infection doesn't cause it, but they get over it and they get another infection over and over and over again. And that scratching of the cornea causes it to cloud and they lose their vision. It's common for these people to pluck their eyelashes so that it doesn't hurt, because it does hurt. So you see kids come in with swollen eyes and no eyelashes. There's some venereal diseases obviously caused by chlamydia. My favorite is that I mentioned this here, the koala. Little fuzzy, cute, utterly nasty animal from Australia. Is in big trouble. Part of this is habitat loss, part of this is feral cats, but a big thing is that there are 3 major diseases affecting these animals, and all of them are chlamydia. And so the fertility stinks. This is Protochlamydia amoebophila. This is one of these organisms infecting an amoeba. It infects Acanthamoeba castellani. You guys ever heard of this organism before? How many of you wear contact lenses? You have Acanthamoeba in your eyes, almost certainly. If you wear your lenses too long, if you sleep in them, this is why you're going to go blind. This organism, you get bacterial biofilm on your contact lenses, the amoeba eats the biofilm, and then the amoeba starts to eat your eye. It has this chlamydia that likes to grow in it. Interestingly, this chlamydia doesn't have the highly reduced genome. It's not as dependent on its host as the animal parasites are for resources and things. And so it's got a complete TCA cycle. It's got a bunch of genes for biosynthesizing some of the amino acids. Interestingly, it can't make tryptophan. The ability to make tryptophan is one of the virulence factors in animal parasites, of the animal chlamydia. And exactly what's going on here, as far as I know, is uncertain. But one of the things the animal cell seems to be doing is that it either prevents the chlamydia from getting to tryptophan, or there isn't enough tryptophan to supply the needs of the parasite or something. And so it needs to be able to make its own tryptophan. So one amino acid they can make. Protochlamydia, amongst the amino acids that it can make, tryptophan is not one of them. So tryptophan is not made by it. And so it generally gets its energy from oxidative phosphorylation, even though it's living inside the host. So this is a great case where you can study an extant organism and learn about the steps that a parasite makes as it goes down the path toward obligate parasites.